So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another WebEx training session. Today, I'll introduce new features that are now available with the inventory module in Maitre'D 705. So the new features that were added to the inventory module follow some of the most popular enhancement requests that we received over time. So these enhancements now make the inventory module easier and more efficient to use. So during this session, first of all, it will be recorded, so that's why your phones are all muted, so that there's no background noise in the recording. You'll be able to download the recording after the session. So if you have any questions along the way, just write them down. Keep questions until the end. So as I was mentioning before, there's a question and answer period. So at the end of the presentation, we'll take as long as it takes for all your questions to be answered. So during the presentation, I'll switch back and forth between the PowerPoint and the Maitre'D software to make some demonstrations. You'll probably notice that there are slides that contain only text. These are actually explanations of the steps that you need to take. So I will not focus on these text slides. They'll be there for your reference later. I'll focus more on the practical part of going into the Maitre'D software to show you actually how it's done. So later, when you have the presentation in hand, you can look at those slides and look at the steps exactly to reproduce what you've seen in practice. Okay, so let's view a detailed agenda for today. So a couple of minutes for the introduction. After that, we'll see generic items, inactive items, which are actually pretty much tied together. After that, we'll see the service price catalog from Cisco, the feature called disable item price notification, and the last feature we'll see is a neat little flag called hide theoretical quantities. And we'll finish by a quick conclusion. We'll see the next subject that we'll discuss, and after that, there'll be the question and answer session. So the goal of this presentation is to present new features that are available specifically in the inventory module with Maitre'D 705. So with the exception of the service catalog from Cisco, all these features are only available in 705. You will not see them in Maitre'D 2005 with Service Pack 4 or any other earlier versions. This is not a presentation that's intended for first-time users. So basically, I assume that you have already basic knowledge of the inventory module, be it with 2003 or 2005. It's very similar in both of these versions. So if you've worked with it before, you should be good with this presentation today. So basically, you should already be familiar with a couple of terms that are used in the Maitre'D inventory world. So first of all, there's a purchase order, merchandise reception, automatic production, automatic conversion, adjustments, and item cost. So basically, if you heard those terms before, but you're not sure exactly what they do, if you're not sure that you understand exactly what happens with those, don't worry, because you'll see that it's so well tied in with the new features that we're going to see today. The presentation of today it can actually make you understand those terms better. If you've heard them before, but you're not exactly sure how they work with what we've seen today, it should actually help you. So what's important is that at least these terms be familiar to you so that you can benefit from this presentation that we're going to see today. Now let's go ahead with our first subject, which is the generic item. So the idea behind the generic item is it's an item that's used to consolidate all your purchase formats. So if we take an example for bars, you know that in bars you can buy any kind of alcohol in different formats. Most common sizes are, like for vodka, for example, you have bottles of 26 ounce, 40 ounces, and 60 ounces. These are even sold in cases that could contain 6, 12, and even sometimes 24 bottles. So the type of size that you'll purchase will depend on what's available. and the pricing you're able to get from your supplier. So obviously you want to have the better deal, so you'll buy the one that gives you the most for your money, and also depending on what you use and so on and so forth. So basically the idea behind the generic item, that since vodka, for example, it's used by the ounce, you can purchase it by the case or by the bottle. The idea is to take all of those different purchase formats and pool everything together into one generic item that will be used for all your recipes after that. So for the example that I'll use today, I'll talk a lot about vodka. And the item that I'll use today is the 1 ounce vodka. That will be the generic item that we'll use today. So now I'll show you a little graphic just to illustrate exactly what I'm saying with that. So if you look at the top row, we have all the different purchase formats that we can have. So we have cases of 12, 26-ounce bottles, 6, 40 ounces, and so on and so forth. And also, if you want, you can have individual bottles that you can buy. The common denominator for all those purchase formats is the 1 ounce vodka that you'll use. Because if you look at most of your recipes in inventory, you could sell the item 1 ounce at a time in a glass, or a couple of ounces at a time. You could use it in drinks. So you could have your recipes for your Sex on the Beach, your Bloody Mary, your Bloody Caesar, that kind of stuff. You could also have inventory recipes that create batches, like you want to create a batch of punch, for example, or a batch of pre-made vodka and orange juice mix. So that generic item will be used in your recipes. So basically the concept is this. You have all your purchase formats at the top. All that pools into one generic item, and that generic item is then used into all your recipes and sales items. So that's the generic concept of the generic item. Okay, so next we'll see how to set everything up. There's a couple of steps that are involved in creating the generic item and working with it. First step will be to create the generic item itself. The second step will be to create the inventory conversion recipe. Third step will be to create the purchase item. And the third step will include linking that purchase item with the recipe used in the conversion recipe for that item that will put the purchase format into the generic item. So as you notice here, it's kind of reversed of compared to the graphic that we've seen earlier. So the first step is the generic item itself, followed by the recipe, and then the purchase format. So you'll see when we do it in practice, you'll understand the logic behind that, why we have to follow that order of creation. Okay, so as I was saying in the middle of at the beginning of the presentation, sorry, this is all the steps in order to create a generic item. So you have that page over here, and you have another step here. So I'll go very quickly with those, and I'll focus more on the demonstration of actually creating that item. If you want, when you have the presentation in hand, I'll send it to you after the presentation. You can take those slides and follow the steps as you go in the inventory module to actually follow everything step by step. But for me here, I want to focus more on what it looks like in the real world. So I'll just do that with you right now. So as I was saying, the first step is to create the generic item. So if I'm working with vodka, I want to create the item that I will actually use in my recipes, which is the generic item, the 1 ounce vodka. So in the inventory module, I go in my inventory items, and as you see here, I've already created one, but I'll do as if that item never existed before. I want to add a new item. Now I can give it the code I want. It could be also the name, it doesn't matter. I want to give it a good description. You don't need to worry about the other fields there. And what's important here is that you put a check mark in the generic item to make that, that's because that's the item that will be used in your recipes, and that's the item where all your purchase formats will pool into. So it's very important to identify it that way. Then the second tab, which is the formats. When you purchase it, normally you could purchase it by the case. So let's see, case. And I've also created all different sizes of bottles for my purchasing formats. So you could set that up whichever way you want. And normally vodka is used by the ounce. It's very rare that the customer at a bar buys a full bottle of 26 or 40 ounces. So you want to use that by the ounce. Okay, normally in your case, let's say this is a case of 12 bottles. So we have 12 bottles in the case, and we have 26 ounces in a bottle. So here we go. Now the other tabs that we have here, if you don't have multi-location, you don't have to worry about the location tab, and you don't have to worry about the recipe item for that item just yet. So let's go apply and OK. So that's it for the generic item. Now it doesn't want to create it because that item already exists. Actually it did. Let me just remove that one though. Okay. So that's it for the generic item. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. The next step in the process is to create the conversion recipe. So again, here are all the steps. I'll go very quickly on that, and then I'll switch to the software to show you exactly how the recipe is done. There's a bit more steps in there. You'll see it's much easier than it looks. Okay, so now I've already have my generic item right here. Now I want to create my recipe. So the recipes are created from the File menu and Recipe. When you create a recipe, you just go Add. Now you want to give it a description that will be meaningful to you. So normally I suggest that you give the description that corresponds to the format of purchase. So for example, if you want to buy a case of 12 bottles of 26 ounces, well, just give it that name. Just now, for the time being, I'll just use test to make sure that it doesn't conflict with something that I already have. Then I want to go Add. And the items that I see here are all my inventory items. So now I want to select my 1 ounce vodka. And the quantity here will be the quantity that I have per bottle. Sorry, it's the actual number of bottles that I have. So depending on how you created your item, that will determine the what you have here. So now I'll just say that's all there is to it. So I'll just take a look at one of the other recipes that I have here. So it's really the usage unit that you have to put in your recipe. So in each bottle, you have 40 ounces, so you put 40 in your recipe. So each bottle of vodka will turn into 40 ounces. Since there are 6 by case, that will be automatically multiplied for you. Okay, so now if you have more than one purchase format, you want to create all the recipes for all your purchase format first. Because after that, when you create the purchase item, you'll have to link that purchase item to the recipe. So the reason why I have you do the recipe first is that you don't want to be creating the item, then going out of the item, create the recipe, go back in the item again to link the recipe. So that way you save a step. So you create the recipe first. That way, when you're ready to create the item, you do the item, and you link it right away with the recipe. Okay, so recipes are very easy to create. It's only a couple of clicks. So you just select the create a new recipe, select the item, enter the quantity, do OK, and you're done. That's it. Okay, my new recipes are all here at the bottom. So quantity 60 of 1 ounce vodka per bottle. Okay, next step, purchase item. So again, we have all the steps to create that here that are detailed for you. So again, we want to go in inventory item setup. There's a couple of ways to access the same menu, by the way. You can use the link that's right here at the middle of the page, or you can go in File and then go Inventory Items. It does exactly the same thing. So that's the actual indication that you have in the PowerPoint presentation, but it goes to the same place. So once you're in there, you want to add a new inventory item that will be your purchase item. So you want to go Add. Again, not to conflict with what's already in there. I'll just use test for description. But of course, you want to use a description that's meaningful to you. After that, in your format, now that's where it becomes important to use the correct formats here. When you purchase your vodka, normally you purchase it by the case. And there could be, for example, 12 bottles in the case. So you count your bottles when you count your inventory. So I want to use 26-ounce bottles. There's, as we were saying, 12 bottles in the case. And in each bottle, there's 26 ounces. Okay, so now we have our quantity set up properly. Now the flag that you have to turn on right here is automatic conversion. So what that does is that it's telling Maitre'D that when you receive that item, automatically it will look if the item has a recipe. Since the item will have a recipe, we'll just link it later, it will automatically use that to convert that item into the second item. So after that, so the format is done. Cost, you don't have to worry about that. Location, don't have to worry about that either. Recipe, that's where we'll link the item with the recipe that we just created earlier. So now since I'm purchasing like bottles of vodka, cases of vodka, I'll use the recipe that I created earlier for that. So I have 12 times 26 ounces of vodka that I created earlier as I was doing my tests. And once I'm done with that, I just go Apply and OK. to exit out of there. So the logic, what happens, when I purchase this item here that I just called it test, but it's really a case of 12 bottles of 26 ounces. When I purchase that, Maitre'D looks at the format. Okay, so it's one case, there's 12 bottles in the case, and there's 26 ounces per bottle. Okay, that's perfect. Then it says automatic conversion. Oh, that means that I have to go check if there's a recipe, and then use that recipe to put everything that's in there into the other item that's in the recipe. So in the recipe, it happens to be the 1 ounce vodka. So what will happen is that the system will multiply 12 bottles times 26 ounces and modify the item accordingly. So it's pretty simple so far. So now we've completed our the three main steps into creating items. So we've created the generic item first, then we've created a recipe for the item, actually a recipe for each of our purchase formats, and then we finished by putting in the item that will be used to purchase the inventory items. So what we want to do with that after that is to purchase these items and receive these items. Okay, so when purchasing and receiving merchandise, only the purchase item you created can be used. So whenever you look at the list, you know, when you place a purchase order, the generic item, you can't even see it. So it's not even part of that list. The only thing that you see is your purchase formats. So it avoids confusion. It makes it easier for you when you do your purchases and your merchandise reception. So generic items, they simply cannot be used for purchase and receive merchandise. So you just cannot use the 1 ounce vodka to receive it. Anyway, it doesn't make sense because unless you buy like those mini bottles there, nobody sells vodka by the ounce, you know, when you buy it in bulk. Now, it's the same thing when you perform adjustments. Again, only the purchase item can be used. So when you take your inventory counts, as we said, you purchase by the case, you count by the bottle in the inventory, and your usage is ounces. So when you're going to do your counts, the employee will go in the stock room, will count how many cases, you'll put that in your worksheet, count how many loose bottles you have, put that in the worksheet as well. And if you have a bottle that's been opened, that there's missing a couple of ounces in it, you'll count how many ounces are left in there using the meter or whichever method you normally use, and then you'll put that in the worksheet as well. So at the end, the system will automatically multiply everything for you and tell you how many total ounces that make, and then when you pull your inventory report, you'll see your variances and everything. So the generic item itself, it cannot be used to perform adjustments. So that helps a lot because it's very hard for employees to count ounces. If you have like 6 cases of 60 ounces or something, and you want to count ounces, that makes a lot. So the system automatically figures everything out for you. Okay, now we'll do a little demo of how that works. Okay, first of all, I'll just go in the inventory module and make sure that I didn't mess up anything with my testing earlier. Okay, that's all good. So now I'll just skip the step of doing a purchase order because you should already be familiar with that. So I'll go directly with a merchandise reception without a purchase order. Because as I was saying earlier, basically you should already be familiar with purchase orders. So I'll just do a merchandise reception without a purchase order. Okay, So you recognize the format of this already. So now the items that I see in here, they're all my purchase formats that I created. If you look for the 1 ounce vodka, you could always look for it if you want, but I'm telling you, you won't find it. So all you see here are all your purchase formats. Okay, so you see here I have 12 times 26 ounce bottles. I have 6 times 40 and 6 times 60. So let's say that today I have a special price for the case of 12 26 ounce bottles. So I want to buy 2 cases, and let's say $150 a case. I really don't know how that costs for real, but that doesn't really matter. Okay. So now I just want to apply the payment here at the bottom. So it's just like purchasing regular items there. It's exactly as you've always seen to purchase and receive merchandise. Okay, now I've received the items. So now I'm bringing out the calculator just to make a little calculation for you. So we purchased 2 cases. Each case contains 12 bottles. So basically 12 bottles times 26 ounces. That makes 312. We bought 2. So that times 2. So we should have 624. So that's a total of 624 ounces. I forgot to check if I already had a quantity of item, but basically it should be increased by that amount here. So if I look at my 1 ounce vodka right here, no, my quantity was empty. So in stock right now, what I have is 624 ounces. So that's what I just purchased. Okay, so it's a good thing here that my items start with numbers because they always show up at the beginning of the list that way. So basically when you perform an adjustment, you can only use the purchase item. You've already seen that. When you see that on the drop-down list, the generic item, it just doesn't show up. So that way you can't make any mistakes. When you do your counts, you'll be able to count each type of bottle, each type of case that you have, and put that in worksheets. So it's going to be very easy for your employees. I'll show that to you in a minute. Unfortunately, this I have to tell you, there's currently a bug where the items, if you do an adjustment, they will not be counted properly if you do an adjustment. But if you just do a purchase and then you sell those items and you do your reporting, everything will be okay until you do an adjustment. So I'll show you how it works, but unfortunately I cannot show you the result because it messes up the quantities. That's in the process of being fixed right now. I can't tell you exactly an ETA of when that will be fixed, but it's something that we're already aware of. Okay, so let's just see how it works for an adjustment. So let's go into the action, and let's do an adjustment for now. So I will not use a worksheet, although you could. I'll just do it by hand. So when you do an adjustment for any item, if you look at the list here, I have, again, my purchase formats. And if you look for the generic item in here, you won't find it. It's not there. You can only use your purchase formats to do adjustments. So if I use that, it automatically figures out all the purchase formats. So as I was saying before, when you do your counts, if you have a worksheet or if you use the adjustment directly like I'm doing now, you can count how many cases you have left, then how many bottles, and if there's a bottle that's not finished, there's still a couple of ounces left in it, you can count individual ounces also. So when you do your adjustment at the end, again, once the bug is fixed, of course, and you do okay on your adjustment, it'll put the right quantity automatically for you. So you don't even need to bring out your calculator and figure out how many ounces that makes. You just have to count how many cases, how many bottles, how many ounces. You do okay, and the system figures everything out for you. So I'll just cancel out of that for now. And we'll continue on with the presentation. So demo for that is done. Next is inactive items. That's another feature that it's closely tied with generic items. So you can turn any inventory item inactive for various reasons. Inactive items will not be visible when you make purchases, receptions, or adjustments. So, for example, if a certain buying format that is only available, for example, during the holidays, you may want to make it available only just before the holidays and then make it unavailable for immediately after the holidays. So you want to keep it inactive for the rest of the year. So that way you don't have to see it in your list or in your reports until you actually need it. So basically the advantage of this feature is that it makes your list look cleaner because there will be fewer items in it. So the option is located in the inventory management module under File, Inventory Items in the item itself. Okay, so I'll now just show that to you. That'll just take a second. It's very easy. When you go in Inventory Item Setup, so let's say that my case of 12 26-ounce bottles, I don't want to see it anymore because I don't want to use it. There's a flag right here that says inactive. So if I turn that on, I do apply OK. Then if I want to do a merchandise reception, now if I'm looking at my purchase formats, the case of 12 bottles, it's not there anymore. So that's really just to make the list look cleaner, and it makes it easier for the person that makes the purchases and the reception, as there's few items to go through when you do your receptions. So that was very easy to use. Okay, so that covers the generic item, and it covers also the inactive items. So if you have any questions, please write them down and save them for the end, because now we'll go on with the next subject. At the end of the presentation, there will be a question and answer session, and we'll look at all those questions together. Next feature we're going to see is the Cisco Food Service Price Catalog. What it's used for. So with Maitre'D 705, and it was also available in the later versions of Maitre'D 2005 with Service Pack 4. I believe it came in with one of the later hotfixes. You can now receive inventory purchase prices directly from Cisco. What you need to do first is you have to sign up for an account with Cisco, and then they will send you a software package to go along with that. Once you've set that up, you have to set up all your inventory items with the proper supplier product code. And so all these codes, they're indicated in the Cisco catalog. So you have to go into each of your inventory items and set up the proper codes in them. Okay, we'll see that later. There's just a couple of points I need to mention. Contrary to popular belief, there is no such thing as a downloadable Cisco catalog. We received a lot of questions at support where people were asking if it's possible for Maitre'D to import all of the inventory items from the Cisco catalog. So the idea would be you download the catalog from Cisco, you don't need to create any inventory item, and you import everything. It doesn't work like that. There's no such thing. That thing does not exist. What it does is that you have to go in Maitre'D, you have to create each of your individual inventory item one by one, like we've always done. The only thing that this feature does is that the purchase price of each item is automatically updated from Cisco. So it just changes the purchase price. It does not change the purchase format, does not change the name of the item or anything else. It's really just the purchase price that's updated. And if you don't put in the proper product code, it will not work. So your item has to be set up properly, and all those items you have to set them up yourself. That's very important that you understand that, because sometimes we've had cases where people misunderstood exactly how it works, you know. So just make sure that you understand exactly what it does so that you can, you know, use it properly. Okay, there's a technical note on the knowledge base that's easily accessible to set it up. So because there's a couple of files to copy in different directories and so on. So all that's outlined in this technical note right here. Just wanted to go and show you the technical note. Okay, while I'm doing this, it's very easy to search for technical note numbers. As soon as you know the technical note number, all you have to do on the knowledge base is to go in the search feature, and you paste in the technical note number if you have it, or you just type it in, and you'll get the proper technical note right away. So this document is very detailed, and it outlines everything that you need to do. Basically, once you have the software package from Cisco, as I was saying before, there's a couple of files that will need to be manually copied into different folders, and everything's outlined there. Everything is properly explained, and you know everything that you need to do. On the Maitre'D side, once the software outside of Maitre'D is done, the only thing that you'll need to set up is in each inventory item, you'll need to set up the proper supplier product code that's right here. So in each of your inventory item, the first tab, the item tab, you have supplier product code. You have to set that up here. Cisco will give you a list of all their items. So let's say I have a case of tomatoes, for example. For them, case of tomato is code 12345. So you just put the 12345 in the supplier product code. So whenever you download new prices, it'll match the product codes and update the purchase prices in the cost section right here. So you have the cost that shows up here. It'll be updated automatically. So it helps a lot when you do your purchase orders because you know right away exactly how much an item costs, and you know that the price is up to date. So that's why we've developed that interface. Next feature that we've added, disable item price notification. So this feature is pretty much self-explanatory. Okay. It's a very simple feature, and although it's simple, we received a lot of requests for it. What it does is that it blocks everyone except the system owner and distributor from modifying any price for inventory items. Okay, so if we want to go look at the feature, as you see here, it's in the inventory management, view options, purchase order. So let's go take a look at that. So we go under view options, and then we go in purchase order. So we have here disable item price modification. So it's a global setting that applies throughout the inventory module for everyone, except system owner and distributor. So if you set up any other user access in your user access setup, any other passwords that might access Maitre'D will not be able to modify any prices. And when we see item prices, we're talking about the prices of each individual inventory item that is in the cost section right here. Because as you know, here we can put in any price we would like in these boxes. So now with that option enabled, it'll just prevent that. Okay, so that was a very easy feature. Next one, hide theoretical quantities. This one is a bit more complicated to understand, but not by much. Okay, so what is the theoretical quantity first? The theoretical quantity is the quantity of stock that's left that is calculated by the system based on sales, waste, purchases, lost, and whatever else that might happen to the system. So it's a calculated quantity, so that's why it says it's theoretical. It does not take into account like if a bartender overpoured or broke a bottle, that kind of stuff. So you know, it doesn't account for human error, so that's why it's theoretical. So now, why would you want to hide that value? We all know that humans are humans, and sometimes the person that will be taking the inventory will want to maybe make it look better, you know, just to hide the fact that they broke a bottle or that they lost something or that they miscounted earlier, so that they want to tweak the numbers a little bit to make it look better. So if they don't see the actual theoretical numbers, that way they will not be tempted to cheat on the system. So that's one of the reasons. So that way you're sure that your employee, that when they do the count, they count what's actually in there and they put the actual numbers in. So that's another feature that we have been requested for a lot of times. This option is located again in the view options section, the general section, in adjustment. So if we go in Maitre'D to see exactly where it sits, under view options, under adjustment, it's a brand new option right here, hide theoretical quantity. So that way, I'll just show you the difference. I'll just leave it unchecked for now. So it's when you go, let's do an adjustment for now. Oh, I made my item inactive. Okay, that's a good point here. Because whenever your item is inactive, it's not showing in the list right here, so you might look for it quite a bit. So if you're looking for it, just use the show all option that's right here. That'll make sure that everything shows up. So you see it's between parentheses here, you see that this item is inactive. So I want to make it active again so I can adjust it. Actually, that's not a good example because so items with automatic reception there, they have a different behavior when you do adjustments on them. They don't report any theoretical quantities. Okay, so now you see I just purchased 10 cases of the 10-ounce cover right here. So now I have a theoretical quantity of 10. So that's grayed out. I can't modify it. So the system is telling me that according to the purchase I've made, according to the sales I've made and everything else, I should have 10 cases back in the stock. But that does not take into account anything else that might happen, like people forgetting to put in wastes or if they lost a case or anything else. It doesn't take that into account. Okay, so now if I go back into view options, under adjustment, hide theoretical quantity, apply OK, and go back into my adjustment. For now, I want to use again the same item. Should not see it, should not display it right now. Maybe that's something else to look at. Let's just try that once more. Well, you know, you gotta hate when that happens. Okay, so I'll have to review that to see why it was not working correctly, and I'll just send you an email with a correction. I'll just make that document available with, along with the downloadable presentation. So I'm not sure if it's something that I didn't set up properly, if it's actually a bug. I'll just investigate that, and I'll get back to you with the results. Okay, so what we've covered today, we've covered generic items, inactive items, the food service price catalog from Cisco, disable item price modification, and high theoretical quantity. Again, I'll have to get back to you on the theoretical quantity. I'll issue an email and I'll attach a document that will be available along with the downloadable presentation. Next session, it's something that I've received quite a lot of requests for, will be the external order service, also known as the web ordering system. We'll see what it involves, what you need to make it work, what are the software and hardware requirements, along with any third-party software that you need, as you need a lot of stuff to get that to work. So I'm currently running up all the documents that are available, all the resources from like third-party companies and that kind of stuff, so that I can put together a presentation to give you a general idea of how it works and how it's set up and how it could benefit you and your customers. So that's something that we've put a lot of hard work on, and I really can't wait to get a little bit deeper on this subject with you guys. Okay, so as I've said at the beginning, we'll do a quick question and answer session for as long as it needs to go on. So I'll just unmute your phones right now. Let me just stop the recording.